Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Continuum. Wow, it's been a long road getting from there to here, hasn't it? I hope you can all hear me okay. I set my audio properly, I hope, and you can all hear me okay. So, here we are, Season 3. And it's been a long wait, hasn't it, since Season 2? And I think as I've watched a few other reviews, I think a few people have forgotten things. So, yeah, how are you all doing? So there's 4 or 5 in the chats right now, I think. Yeah, 4 people in the chats. So come and say hello in the chats. Who's here? Who's watching? Let me know. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. You know, this review is for you as much as it is for me. Yeah, so we'll wait for a few people to come in, and obviously come and say hello in the chats, guys. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. I promise you, I don't bite. Okay, so yeah, come say hello. Who's here? Who's here? Come on, don't be afraid. I don't bite. I promise, I don't bite. All right, it's gone down to 2 watching now, I think. Yeah, it seems that way. It's gone down to 3, now to 2. Guys, don't be afraid. Come and say hello. I promise you, I won't bite. I won't bite. I promise. Okay, well, we'll wait, see if any more pop in the next few minutes. In the meantime, so yeah, Starship Discovery Season 3. I've watched a few other reviews. I know mine's coming in a little bit late. That's why I'm doing all 3 today. But I've seen a few other reviews. I think a lot of people have forgotten what went on in the last season, you know, and so it has played well actually into the new season. LDG Pixels, hello, my friend. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Yeah, guys, by the way, for those who watch it, LDG Pixels, great guy, great channel, and an IT ninja. So if you ever have any issues that you need resolving, or a PC that needs fixing, or anything else, he's the man. He's the man to go and see. Okay, LDG Pixels, awesome guy. In fact, he was just on the Question of Trek last Saturday, sorry. And yeah, in fact, he won as well. He did very, very well. So good for him. He was with Trek Cat on that show, I think. So yeah. By the way, while you're watching, don't be afraid to hit the like. If you're not yet subscribed, hit the subscribe, and of course, share this stream with your friends. Don't be afraid. I also know this is probably a bad timing to do a review of Star Trek, given what's going on in the States at the moment. I know a lot of people are emotional about it, one way or the other. You know, but hey, there's always time for Star Trek. You know, when you're feeling down, Star Trek's always the thing to lift you right back up again. You know, no matter what Star Trek is. So, Star Trek Season 3, Episode 1. Well, I've got to say, after watching this first episode, it was a far cry from Season 1. All right? Now, most of you know me, and you know, you all understand that I'm not a fan of Discovery Season 1. Season 1 for me was not a great season for the show. But then again, that's kind of like the Trek curse. Most first seasons of any Trek show don't hold up well. So, you know, I gave it a pass. Season 2 was much better, I found, especially with the introduction of Anson Mount Pike. I think the guy did a great job on that. And it just continues to improve. There are a few little things to nitpick here and there, which I have and I will do, but nothing else that you haven't heard. But, you know, I'm not going to tear the show to shreds, because there are things of the show that I did like. And yeah, the first 3 episodes, especially the first episode, was a massive improvement to anything that I saw in Season 1. I thought this season so far has produced the best 3 Discovery episodes so far on the whole. So yeah, so let's get into the first one, which of course was The Hope Is You. So yeah, so it starts off with a recap of what happened in the previous season with Control. We had Burnham's mother narrating at first, and you saw obviously Control in the 32nd century destroying planets and everything else, which is what we learned in Season 2. And obviously that timeline then got altered, didn't it? As we know, because Burnham's mother arrived back in the 23rd century, she got captured. She got captured by the Discovery crew, and then Control damaged the suit, so the suit and her got pulled back into the 32nd century. However, that timeline got altered, didn't it? And yeah, so that was the reason why Michael Burnham, when she was searching for life forms, went absolutely bananas when she discovered there's life, because in the alternate timeline, Control had destroyed pretty much all life in the Alpha Quadrant, at least, or sorry, all biological life, and only artificial life was was the only thing remaining, and anything that was artificial was pretty much controlled by Control. Obviously, the name gives it away. So as we move past the recap, all we see is Michael Burnham coming through the wormhole and into the 32nd century. She obviously has a few technical errors, and she bumps into a guy called into the ship of Booker, or Booker ship, so I say. And yeah, so that's the point. Then she starts free falling into the planet, as does Booker, and they both kind of crash land. Now, I will admit, watching Michael Burnham hurtle down to the planet, it felt like that moment in Die Hard for me, where what was his name? Bruce Willis had a thing tied around his waist, and because he did an abseil from the roof, and the fire hose drum went flying down. You see him sliding towards the window. It was kind of like that. I did find it quite intense. Oh, she's gonna hit the planet. She's gonna, and yeah, it was like a white knuckle ride, and you can also see it on Sonequa Martin Green's face as well. She did that very well. In fact, Sonequa Martin Green had a lot of fun with the character of Michael Burnham in this episode. You can definitely tell, and we'll get more into that as we go along. So yeah, I think that was the best interpretation I've seen of Michael Burnham so far by Sonequa Martin Green. That she definitely had a lot of fun. She had a lot of fun with her character. Going from this sort of stiff, stoic kind of character she portrayed in the last two seasons. Here she was a lot more fun, a lot more mellow, and I think she sort of had time between obviously the two shows to sort of really just relax into it. It's the same thing with Patrick Stewart when he played Picard. In the first two seasons he was very sort of stiff and he was actually like that behind the scenes as well. He sometimes used to lose his mind with his fellow cast members, because they like to sort of have a bit of a joke, bit of a mess around, have a lot of fun, and obviously, he didn't like that. He was like, I'm much more professional. So yeah, and that's the same with Michael Burnham. You can definitely tell with Michael Burnham. She was first two seemed very stiff. I think she was sort of still learning the character, and then in this first episode, smack bang, as she crashed into the planet, and she got out the suit, scanned for life forms and everything else. You could tell she just really relaxed into the character, and that's great. It's really, I do like this new Michael Burnham. Josie Petcher says, Conti on the phone. Home internet is down. Yes, I had that issue as well when I got a new router. Now that was the wrong router, and now I've got my newer router, which will handle the one gigabyte internet. So that is getting set up tomorrow. I didn't want to do it today in case it took time for the internet to get back up, because sometimes these things could take an hour or two before it actually goes through its process. So I thought I'll wait till tomorrow before I do that. But anyway, I was getting into it. So Michael Burnham and Booker, they crash on the planet. And so Booker's a bit sort of peeved off. Not only because he was being chased by a space pirate, obviously who we stole cargo from, which we don't know what that is yet at this point. And but then Michael Burnham smacks into him, and obviously they're both free falling at the planet. So I can imagine he's a bit peeved off. And Michael Burnham, after scanning for life forms, and is ecstatic because she realized that they've changed the future from what the previous iteration was, that Control had wiped out pretty much all biological life, to now there's an abundance of life in the 32nd century. So kudos from that. They've rewritten the 32nd century now in Star Trek Discovery. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So Booker and Michael Burnham. So that was actually good fun. Booker, he came across sort of like I won't say Han Solo, more like a Malcolm Reynolds kind of guy, but without the military background. He's a bit of a pirate. He's a bit of a thug. Well, not a thug. He's a bit of a lad. Sort of like a cross between Malcolm Reynolds and Del Boy Trotter. For you who don't, Del Boy Trotter is a character in a show called Only Fools and Horses, which no longer airs, but it was a good show and it was a great character. So he's a bit of a lad. He's a bit dodgy, but his heart's in the right place. And so we did get into it. She pulls a phaser out on him. He pulls out some sort of device. I'm not sure if it was like a sword or a knife or whatever it was. I don't know what it. To be honest, it looked like a pair of handcuffs. with a metal rod in the middle, but it looked like it was some kind of weapon. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was just some sort of something he had to beat her over the head with. I don't know. But yeah, so he starts when she pins him down eventually and puts a phaser to him. He says, "You're not going to shoot me with that antique, are you?" So clearly he recognizes the technology, but he also sees it as something that's very, very old. And so he's like, no, I'm not. Don't worry. I just want to be a friend. I'm sorry for crashing into you. But he's not buying it. He's used to sort of people trying to manipulate him and people sort of lying to him, so he thinks this might be some sort of trap. Because she said, look, I just accidentally arrived here. I didn't mean to crash. She said, nobody accidentally arrives here. Because you could say that where they are is what should we say, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Sort of thing. And they do end up going to a place called Requiem, which is kind of like that, but so after that little introduction, they sort of make up, they make friends. And he starts asking, where do you come from? He says, well, I've just come from very far. I've just come from very far away. He said, you've come from temporal wormhole. Now, the nearest natural wormhole is like 6 light years away. Whatever wormhole you came from, you must have created artificially and come from God knows where. It says, look, I'm sorry for crashing into you. But we get past that, and he says, look, I need to get to Requiem to get dilithium crystals. No, wrong. They go to his ship first, don't they? And he introduces Grudge. We've got a new character in Star Trek called Grudge, and he says that she is a queen, although she has a bit of a thyroid problem. Now, I am hoping that Grudge is a shapeshifter, similar to that of Gary Seven's cat, the cat that Gary Seven had, who you could change shape. So who knows? Maybe this cat might be a shapeshifter as well, because she does seem to have a bit of an attitude, as Booker describes at least. And he mentions that he needs to get dilithium, because dilithium is a rare thing where they are in the 32nd century. That although he has quantum slipstream drive, which I don't know why, if he has quantum slipstream drive, why he needs dilithium crystals, because quantum slipstream drive doesn't use dilithium crystals. I think he uses something called dynamite crystals or something else. But okay. And there are other methods of traveling through space, but apparently none of them were as efficient as utilizing dilithium crystals to power their warp drive. But then again, dilithium crystals don't power the warp drive, matter and antimatter. So this was one of those things, unfortunately for me, was like nails on a chalkboard. It was like, oh, you got that wrong. And look, every Trekkie has their moment where they go, ooh, no, and hey, it's part and parcel of being a Trekkie. I'm not hating on the show. It's just, it's one of those little things that I didn't like about it. But hey, I was still having fun with the episode. So yeah, all in all, it wasn't that bad. It was one of those little nitpicking things, I think. Let me know what you think. What you thought of that part. So from there, they make their way to a place called Requiem, where obviously, Michael Burnham is willing to trade some of her ancient technology, which might be worth something because it's in really good condition. Obviously, from her point of view, it's actually not that old, because it probably just got replicated before she went on the mission, before she went through the wormhole. However, from Booker's point of view, this is ancient technology and it's very, very rare, and it might be worth something. So he leads her off to Requiem, and on the way there, I don't know why they had to walk there. The ship still kind of worked. They could have just flown towards it, but okay. We needed a Lord of the Rings moment where they're walking and talking. And he explains to her that that we went through that 100 years ago, something called the burn happened. Excuse me. I need to get drunk. Sorry about that. My mouth is drying off. Give me a sec. So yeah, something called the burn took place, and the majority of all dilithium crystals exploded. Now that story kind of changed in the 3rd episode. I don't know when they said all dilithium crystals went inert, where in the 1st episode they said most dilithium crystals went inert. So I guess we still need to find out. Maybe there's more information coming up on that story. So we end up in Requiem, and as they want to go into say the inner part of the city, they have to go through these body scanners or body images, and they realize that Michael Burnham hasn't got a sort of like a tag on her or anything to identify her. And obviously then the security devices go off. Book Booker, however, tries to vouch for her. Says, look, she's got some very valuable technology. It might be worth something, and all we want to do is get some dilithium crystals. To which some ominous voice from behind, who's obviously been watching him, says, let him through. However, Booker has something up his sleeve. He's actually going to betray Michael Burnham, and so he says, look, she gives him a phaser, so she could get to a communications device, so she can contact the Federation, obviously, or whatever's left of it. And as she walks off into this room, she then gets she's then obviously surrounded by some sort of electronic, shall we say, I don't know, restraint, some sort of force field / restraint, which keeps her in place. And then Booker he books. And she's sort of left there then for security to come and find her. Now, the best bit's coming up now. One of my favourite bits, where you could definitely tell Sonequa Martin Green had a lot of fun with the character, was when they began interrogating her. And first, she was a bit reluctant to answer the questions, and she came off a bit foolish because she's from a completely different time. She knows nothing. She doesn't know how anything works there. And so, she's a fish out of water. And he thinks like she's, not right in the head. Kind of reminds me of Star Trek: The Voyage Home, where Chekhov is getting interrogated on board this nuclear vessel. And he's sort of, again, he's like a fish out of water. He's not sure how, what's going on, what the procedures is, what the procedures are, and he comes across as a bit of a moron. So I saw that, it's the same sort of parallel, really. So they then, because she's been reluctant, I guess you could suppose it would call it a 32nd century version of sodium pentothal, kind of like a truth serum, but also sends you a bit doolally. So that was actually a lot of fun. And she's like, oh, damn. And it took a few minutes to sort of, for it to take effect. But one of the security, it seems like one of the security guards had upped the dosage a bit, because one of the guys said, "Did you change the dosage?" He went, "I told you 100 times not to mess with that thing." So that was funny, and that was one of the better bits of the episode. And she's on a trip, and she tries to answer questions sort of, I would say, directly as possible, but she hasn't got a clue what's going on, and she obviously reveals that Booker took her to Requiem because she wants to get a communications device, this, that, and the other. And he said he's got some sort of cargo that he's stolen, and they want to know where he is. However, eventually, then while still high, she gets out of this situation. And her Booker, as they're trying to get out, one of the security guards has a gun that sort of extends around the arm. I guess they must have some sort of like a replicator device that sort of materializes any kind of equipment on their body if and when they ever need it, which is pretty cool. And I guess their version of the phaser comes on. Michael Byrne manages to take two of the guards down, and she passes a weapon over to Booker, and then they sort of try to fight their way out. Also, along the way, and this is a part I didn't like, where she actually stole dilithium crystals. It's not a great thing, but okay, they needed dilithium crystals. I guess they had to get it some way. So Michael Burnham goes into this the vault that she got captured entering earlier, and obviously steals a whole bunch of handfuls of dilithium crystals, puts in a bag, and then they sort of fly their way out. And then Booker grabs her by the arm, hits his mobile transporter, which was, again, a pretty cool idea. I always thought that's something that was going to come in at some point. I would have thought maybe in Voyager or maybe in one of the movies that would have come in at some point. It makes sense. Just to sort of like have a combat. There's also like an emergency transporter. You just tap it and it sends you to like a predetermined destination, somewhere where you can rendezvous with your crew or something else. And I would have thought that we would have seen something like that in Voyager back in the day. But we've finally got it now. It's in the 32nd century. And so they then, what was also cool as well, that the security guards the security of Requiem could track them. So they could follow. So they're bouncing around from the planet from one destination to the next, to the next, to the next, while firing at one another. And it was another fueling, an adrenaline fueled ride. It was fun to watch, and you felt like you were actually following them along, like you were there with them a little bit. because it was fast paced, but again, it wasn't so fast paced you couldn't see what was going on. I thought it was really well done. That was one of the other favorite bits of that episode. I did miss a bit out there. However, at the beginning, we see Zahil, at the beginning. I forgot about that bit. I'm very sorry. Yeah, because I'm trying to look at the camera and read from the screen as well at the same time, the notes I made. So yeah, please bear with me. Zahil, he lives on one of the space stations all alone. He has a holographic, sort of say, environment around him. His bed is holographic. He has an alarm clock that's a holographic bird. It has the time on it, and also a holographic desk, which sort of, well, it looks like it's levitating, but again, it's just a hologram. That again, and the way it sort of dissipates and materializes with different things. I thought that was really cool. It's a different sort of say aesthetic to what we used to see in the holodecks of old. But it's still a cool thing to see. The effect was very, very good. I enjoyed it. Sorry, going back now to where I was before. So yeah, they're being chased by the security. Eventually, they make it. They come up to a cliff, and Booker hits his transporter one more time, and as they jump off the cliff, they beam off, and then they land. They land in the sea. I think, or sorry, not the sea. They landed in a lake, if I remember. I think it was a lake. And to which Michael Byrne, when they both come out, Michael Byrne realizes she's been shot. He says, "Oh God, it's been such a long time since it's been shot." And Booker, he does something where it makes his forehead glow up, and he can sort of make plants sort of materialize out of the ground or grow out of the ground. And this particular type of plant had some sort of medicinal goo come out of it, and told Michael Byrne to rub it on the wound, which I guess is some sort of like dermo gel or something something that helps regenerate wounds quickly, which was thought was pretty cool. Why not? We've got different. Phlox used to use all kinds of stuff to create his, weird concoctions that would heal up the crew or cure the crew. So yeah, why not? It's nothing. It's nothing out of the ordinary in the Star Trek universe. From that point on, they then make their way off to the ship because they've got to wait a certain amount of time for his his mobile transporter to recharge. And when they reach the ship, they then get surrounded by the guards again, and they want the cargo. So as they've been surrounded and they surrender their weapons, they're asking for the passcode to his ship, to which I think it was Stinky. It was Sticky. No, Sticky. That was it. The password was Sticky. He says, "What kind of a password is that?" I tell you what, when you got your own starship, you can choose your own passwords. All right, the password is Sticky, and I love again the holographic control panel that just sort of appears, and they press the button and disappears again. It fits. I love it. I do love the 32nd century technology, and it does look really good. It is impressive so far. It reminds me when I first saw The Next Generation, where they went from, obviously you had the TOS control systems and in the movies, to then TNG we had all these sort of like flat screens, and it was all touch screen as well, and it just looks great. And this is obviously just the next step from that. Holographic control panels and everything, and it's beautiful, absolutely lovely. And so the password is Sticky, and the ship decloaks, and the compartment opens, and you see these 4 tubes. 3 of them are empty, and one of them is what's called a transworm, which jumps out and it starts attacking the guards. It swallows 1 or 2 of them, and the rest then the rest of them just beam out because they're scared. And they've also been a bit hypnotized. That's why it's called a trance worm. It puts you in a trance so it can attack you. It then turns around and goes after Michael Burnham, which picks her up, swallows her, and then spits her out again. And she comes out covered in all this goo. To which she just stands up. To which she recovers quite quickly and quite lightheartedly says, "This is not the day I had no idea what was in store for me today. I had no idea what today was going to bring." Yeah, and she's remained positive throughout. She didn't go off on on a rage or anything. She was quite happy about it. It turns out that Booker stole the transworm, so he's trying to protect as many of them as he can, and he transported them off to another planet where they can sort of live in peace and not be, shall we say, hunted down like whales. Where people used to go. On Earth we used to do a lot of whaling, and there were a couple of. I think there's a couple of species that are actually extinct now. It's the same sort of thing. So he's trying to preserve this species of worms. And I have to say, overall, well, yeah, and that's pretty much really all the interesting bits of that episode. And they go to the space station as well, don't they? They go to the starbase, and she meets Zahil, who's obviously been running the space station for pretty much all his life. His father was a Starfleet officer, as was his grandfather before him. Now, there's one of the confusing bit, because he said there were never any officers around to commission him into Starfleet, yet, his father was, would have still been around even to see him grow into a man. So I don't understand why his father couldn't commission him, I suppose, or to take his place officially. I don't know what the story behind that is. Maybe we'll learn more later on. But he's glad to see Michael Burnham, and obviously he says, the hope is now on you. We need to rebuild the Federation. She commissions him, says he needs a communications officer, someone to maintain all communications. More exactly, start anything from a Starfleet vessel or anything to do with the Federation or what's left of it, if there is anything. And just basically let her know when something pops up, especially the USS Discovery, because she's been trying to locate the Discovery, and so far to no avail. There's been no sign of it whatsoever anywhere. And that's pretty much that episode. But I do have to say, when I saw this episode, Michael Burnham was away from the Discovery crew. She's definitely in her element then. She can do whatever she wants. She doesn't have to answer to anyone, not anyone of a superior rank or anything else. She definitely works best as a solo, act, and she does. And which is one of my, I did a theory video not so long ago where I said, a theory that what if Michael Burnham, Philippa Georgiou, went off and did their own thing with Section 31, and I do think Michael Burnham would make a better Section 31 agent than a Starfleet officer. That's just how I feel on the subject. She's better off when she's on her own, doing what she does best. Where when she's with the crew, she's kind of held back because of orders and regulations, everything else. But Section 31 don't really worry about that stuff. They never did. I mean, yes, they do concentrate all their efforts on maintaining the Federation and everything else, but they don't follow any rules. Mainly, the only rule they follow is protect the Federation and Starfleet at all costs. That's it. That's pretty much all they do. How they do it is pretty much all up to them. They don't answer to anyone or explain, or have to give any justification for their actions. And I think that's where Michael Burnham and Georgia would fit in. One, because Georgia's from the Mirror Universe. This version of Georgia's from the Mirror Universe. So, she used to be in charge of an entire empire, so no rules ever applied to her anyway, because she made the rules. And Burnham, well, let's face it, many occasions she's broken the rules, and this is one thing that's probably going to upset a lot of people when they watch this. She's not much of a team player. She's a good leader, don't get me wrong, but when you're part of a team, or you have to be a team player no matter what your rank is. And unfortunately, that's just one of those things. It really is. But you can do tell that she's really relaxed into the character now, and she's had a lot more fun with the Michael Burnham character in this episode than she did in the previous seasons, which I thought was a big change in the Michael Burnham character. I have to say, a big change. So those are my overall thoughts on the first episode. Second episode was Far From Home. And that had more of a sort of a Western feel, and let's face it, Star Trek was meant to be a Western in space, so not a problem. Discovery, the episode starts off with inside the USS Discovery, we got lights blinking, flashing, and everything else, and the crew were all unconscious, and not surprisingly, they've just been through a wormhole, which took them through time and space. and they've arrived in the 32nd century. And they all begin to wake up, and the power's down, and the ship is about to crash into a planet. And if it wasn't for some expert flying by Kyla Detmer, well, let's face it, there wouldn't be a ship left. But luckily, she was able to pilot the ship and well, I don't want to say land the ship, but she did an emergency crash landing, if you like. So the ship pretty much remained intact. However, the ice where it crashed, the ice are like spores. They multiply. They started covering the ship, and they started having more and more problems. There were a few injuries after the crash, especially Kyla Detmer. She got a good conk on the head, and she was a little bit delirious, and that was done quite well. I think some people suspected that there might be, maybe a part of control has gone inside her. I personally think she was just stunned and a little bit delirious because of the impact. Same with Stamets as well. We find him in the sick bay, being treated by Dr. Kober, and he's sustained some major injuries, and so he's been sort of operated on in sick bay and having all his bones and wounds healed up. And everyone's also being given stimulants as well to get over the shock of what's happened. Jet Reno, not one of my favorite characters, I have to say, but yeah, she was on about, oh, give me stimulants, and or painkiller, whatever it was. Again, I'm not a fan of Jet Reno. She has some good interactions with Stamets, but all in all, she's not one of my favorite characters, I have to say. It's just the way it is. Once they all sort of come to, and Saru and LGG, it burns. Star Trek Discovery, discover the burn. Yes, well, they are back to discover the burn, aren't they? But yeah, so while they're all coming to, Saru, Tilly, and Giorgio are in the what's the word, in the briefing room, and they're discussing what to do next. Giorgio suggests that you get as many engineers as possible to fix the ship, while she goes out and does a reconnaissance. Saru doesn't like that idea. He doesn't want her going out on her own. Because she'd probably sell him out to the first people she'd see to save her own skin. Because hey, it's Philippa Giorgio. She's from the Mirror Universe. She's evil. Funny enough. Yeah, it's one of those glad things. It's one of those things I'm glad they didn't change about her. Where she was evil, but now she's a good guy. She's just evil. And in this episode, we see why Giorgio would also make a great Section 31 agent in the show. Joe's actually not a fan of Jet unsubbing. Not a fan of Jet unsubbing. Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry to see you go. But Jet Reno, she's just, when you've got a character to deliver one-liners, the one you have to be able to pull it off. And unfortunately, she gets one or two good ones in when she's Stamets, but when she's generally sort of talking to anyone else, they just come off flat. These one-liners just come out really flat, and they're not that funny. But when she's playing off Stamets, then typically they're quite funny. And she does have her moments, but unfortunately, it's not all the time. And yeah, I think it's just too many one-liners coming out of her that it kind of kills it. And that's just the way it is. Those are my thoughts, guys. And I'm sorry if you don't like what I say, but in this case, Jet Reno is not one of the best things in this episode. It's just the way it is. Dr. Cobra, of course, and Stamets. Now they do a great. They play off each other very, very well. Stamets gives Cobra a bit of jip about what he's doing to him. He said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm only healing your wounds and everything else because I love you. But if you want to suffer in pain, I can stop giving you painkillers." No, it's fine. But he does want to get back to work as the ship does need him, and it is true. But unfortunately, he's not on his best game. He's a little slow. It's a little harder for him to do what he has to do. In the meantime, Saru informs the crew that he and Tilly are going to go off on the away mission to see if they can trade some dilithium for any parts that they might need, or any way to fix the parts that they have, or to buy new parts. and they venture off towards the nearest settlement. Now that's where things get interesting, because what they don't know is because of the burn that most that starships now are pretty much a rare thing, as is warp travel. So when they arrive, these people look at, like, where did you come from? We saw your ship. By the way, there's going to be others coming looking for you because we saw your ship. Others would have detected it as well, and they're very much afraid, obviously, because this new future is not a great place. I mean, okay, it's better than the other version of the 32nd century where everybody was dead, due to Control having wiped everyone out. But obviously, they stopped Control, changed the future. So now, there are plenty of people, but no warp travel. We're still going to learn. We're still yet to find out what that's about. Unfortunately, we didn't get that in season 3. Hopefully, we get some more about it in episode 3. Hopefully, we do find out about it in episode 4. I am looking forward to that. Yeah. But again, now this was one of those things when I said, and some of you may have seen my tweets this week, where I wrote, for those of you who know me, I'm not a hater, but I do think that Michael Burnham, Georgia would be much better off in a Section 31 show, and obviously the Discovery crew going off on their own. And this is again the episode that was another bit of proof in the pudding, just like the first episode. In the first episode, we saw Michael Burnham do her thing on her own, and she's much better. She's much better when she's on her own. And then same with the Discovery crew. They work well as an ensemble cast, working as a team, getting things done. And and Michael Burnham is more of a solo act. She's more of a larger than life character compared to the rest of the characters on the show. They work great as an ensemble. Unfortunately, when she's with them, she's kind of in their way. But likewise, when they're with her, they kind of hold her back. So it's two things that just don't gel very well. And I personally think if you put, like I said before, if you take Michael out of Discovery, put her in the Section 31 show with Giorgio, I think you probably get much more out of that character than what we get in Discovery. And the same with the crew of the ship as well. I want to learn more about Kyla Detmer and the Navigator and some of the people that we've seen plenty of in the show, but we know nothing about. So anyway, back to episode 2. They come across the settlement, and it was they meet these. I can't remember what they're called now. Jesus, they meet these people. They meet these alien, and they said, "Look, we've got dilithium. We'd like to trade you for it." They're all a bit skeptical. One of them pulls a phase out on them and threatens to, basically kill them if they don't, to tell them who they are and where they've come from. So Saru comes out with it. And they want to also know why they're so scared. Who's it they're afraid of? And they basically tell them a situation that, a guy, every now and again, these bandits come around, they steal their technology or steal, whatever they can, crops, whatever else. And basically, they make their lives a misery. They make their lives a living hell. The leader of, obviously the leader of the settlement had his brother killed by this, by one of these bandits. And and did not much of a fight. This guy has a warp-capable ship. Also, it seems that he has a much larger, he's part of a much larger group. It's not just him and those few guys. There are more of them out there. So that was kind of cool. But not too long after that's happened. Obviously, that's been mentioned. The parts that need repairing get repaired, and they're ready to also trade the dilithium for them. They just need to go back to the ship and get it. That's when the bandits arrive, and so that's when these bandits arrive, and they said, "We discovered your ship, the USS Discovery. We've never seen a ship like that before." And so we want to know what you're doing here. And then they ask the locals, what is it you're doing? What is it you're doing for them? What is it you're trading for your services? And obviously, dilithium. So, and this is one of the things, obviously, they're being held now. Tilly and Sarah are being held hostage. And, he keeps threatening them, if you don't take me to your ship, I'm going to kill one of you. And they just keep essentially, Saru and Tilly find different ways of, keep delaying this guy, keeping him distracted. And just keeping him in conversation, and until Giorgio turns up, Now, this is one of Georgia's. This is where Georgia got to shine, I think. She comes in, she starts mouthing off. One of them guy gets angry. She pins him down, takes his weapon. However, points it at one of the. He points out the leader of these bandits. To which he shoots it, and the guy shoots it on stun. And you can tell now the stun setting on this was pretty cool. And he fires on her multiple times, and she keeps taking these hits. He keeps taking the hits and keeps taking the hits, and so she ends up falling on her knees. But she gets back up again, and essentially she just starts taking them out, and the settlement's free. It was a typical. This was what you could call basically a typical self-contained story. It's nothing bigger really. They do go into about the burn, how dilithium is a very rare sought after commodity. There aren't that many starships out and about, but so they're quite relieved when they get to trade the dilithium for the ship. In the meantime, back on Discovery, the ice is covering more and more of the ship, as it keeps spreading over the ship. And Stamets gets into a bit of trouble, as obviously he's stuck in one of the Jefferies tubes and he can't get out. And eventually they get him out, obviously, because he's still alive. And there's one scene actually that was a bit, and I have to agree. Actually, was a scene in the engineering area with Jet Reno and Stamets, and she's giving Stamets a bit of grief. And there's this guy in the what's it called in the cubicle, should we say, cleaning up the mess of what the hell was his name now? Leland. Sorry, Leland, who's the guy who had control take over his body. So he got this guy in the back, and she calls him Mr. Hazmat. And said, actually, my name is Gene, very softly. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be a reference towards Gene Roddenberry, I guess. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of other reviewers, they all seem to, agree that this was sort of a dig at Gene Roddenberry for some reason. If it is, that wasn't a great thing to do. And if it's not, hey, whatever. But yeah, it was, and she said, "Oh, I don't know." When he mentioned his name, he said, "Yeah, I've already forgotten it, kid. Don't worry about it." Yeah, again, this is one of those moments where Jet Reno really just, it's like, again, nails on a chalkboard. And yeah, I had to cringe at that moment. This is one of those times where her one-liners just aren't great. She just doesn't do it for me. Yeah. So moving back onto the settlement, they managed to sort of overpower the bandits, and so they get the dilithium to the settlement, and obviously just as they're trying to power up when Saru and Tilly make it back to the ship, and they try and power up the ship, they can't get out. They're stuck. They then get pulled out by a tractor beam. Now, when this first happened, I thought they were coming in with a very large ship to pull out Discovery. It then seems it was only only Booker's ship, which I thought was a bit bizarre. I wasn't too sure if a ship that size could pull something as heavy as Discovery out. Because remember, there's a gravity, there's a very strong gravity on that planet. So yeah, but that kind of gravity, the ship would weigh a lot. So just a ship size. But then again, I was thinking the ship the size of Booker's wouldn't be able to do that. But then again, in the 30s, it is the 32nd century, so maybe it's just better technology, and they have adequate tractor beam technology. The ship has the adequate tractor beam to do that job. Who knows? And as they're being pulled out, they get a communication over the view screen, and of course, it's Michael Burnham. And we see Michael Burnham with a new haircut, which I think looks much better on it than the old haircut. That other haircut she had was a goofy haircut, that she had in season 2 and season 1. Do you mean? It was a goofy haircut. It didn't really suit her, I thought, and it was just, not great. No, it wasn't great at all. But this new haircut, suits her down to the ground. She looks fantastic with the braids. Yeah, in fact, she probably, I think it's probably made it even prettier. I have to say. Not that I'm being shallow or anything, but she does look good with the braids, and it does suit her a lot more than that old haircut from the first 2 seasons, I'm afraid. But that's the way it is. And that's pretty much the end of episode 2, Far From Home. It wasn't an exciting episode, but what you did get to see in these first 2 episodes, like I said before, Michael Burnham and the Discovery crew work better when they're separated, and again, we see more of that in the next episode, which of course was the People of Earth. Now, People of Earth starts off with Michael Burnham kind of like doing a captain's log. She's recounting the events of the year, that most of all the dilithium crystals went inert. All starships that had an active warp core exploded, and we saw a whole fleet of Starfleet ships just explode. Why not? Because they were all pretty close to one another. So if even a couple of them exploded, the rest of them will be taken out anyway. But okay, we'll have them all explode. But I did like the new ship designs. Some of them were covered actually on Trek Yards the other night. I do recommend you go over there and have a look, because that was an interesting show of theirs. That was an interesting show that did. So the back on Discovery, they're all happy to meet it. Now, I can understand Michael Burnham. This is one of the things that did bug me. I can understand Michael Burnham running up to the crew and giving all big hugs. She hasn't seen him in a year. However, the rest of the crew, for them, it's only been a couple of days max, since they last saw Michael Burnham, and it was, oh, hi Mike, how you doing? So the fact that they're running up to her, like they haven't seen her in 10 years, it was a bit bizarre, But hey, all right, it's Star Trek. So once they all get reacquainted and meet and greet, she explains to him what she's learned so far. That she worked as a courier, collecting, she would trade her services for dilithium crystals. She pretty much spent the time, pretty much all of the year with Booker, traveling around the Alpha Quadrant in his ship, and she's learned a few things. It was sort of like Han Solo and Chewbacca. She's Han Solo and he's her Chewbacca. Don't tell him I said that. And so Booker and Rocket Girl going off on adventures. And I hope that nickname sticks. I do hope that nickname Rocket Girl sticks, because to be honest, it's a cool nickname. Oh, Rocket Girl, So yeah, I do hope we get to hear that a couple of more times within the season. Rocket Girl. So we might just need to take a sword. Someone's explained to them they then want to make a jump back to Earth, because although the Federation is sort of dissolved, it's very fragmented. I think from their point of view, they would at least think that Earth was still part of the Federation, and so they get Stamets to get in the spore cubicle, get himself plugged into the spore drive, and off they go, and they go back to the Sol system. They arrive, I think it was by Jupiter, and within a very short period of time, a bit too short, I think, they arrive back at. They're close to Earth's orbit, which they bring up on the monitor, and they got there very quickly from Saturn. I have to say, very, very quickly, a bit too quickly, more than 1.8 hours anyway. But that's a whole different story. And obviously, the first thing they try to do is contact Starfleet. Nothing. And then they get a hail said, leave the solar system. You're not welcome here, or we will open fire, which is obviously not what they were expecting. They probably weren't expecting the red carpet treatment, but they definitely weren't expecting that. But yeah, so eventually these 2 stations come towards, so massive, shall we say, space station come towards them with weapons at the ready, and they get boarded by the Earth Defense Force. Or the agents of the Earth Defense Force, and they want to conduct an inspection. First of all, for dilithium crystals and anything that might lead them to conclude, or lead them to believe that obviously the crew of Discovery are pirates. With that being said, Booker's ship is in the cargo hold, cloaked with the Discovery stash of dilithium inside. Also, it's the majority of the majority of Discovery's dilithium, in Booker's cargo hold cloaked, so that way they wouldn't be able to detect it. So all these agents are going around the ship, tearing everything apart, looking for anything that shouldn't be there or anything that might be suspicious. And some of them go into the obviously into the engine room or the spore drive room, and Stamets is losing his mind because they're just sort of poking and prodding and pressing buttons, and and especially one of them is these this new character, young non-binary. I can't remember. I think it's Ida or Ada. 1 second. It went down. Jesus. Where am I? Give me a second. I can't remember her name now. I've lost it. Anyway, this new young person who's poking around the ship. This is what this does, and that's what that. But what's this? What does that do? And while she obviously distracting some of them, obviously keeping the other members of her team distracted, she sabotages the ship so she has more time to have a look around and study this ancient technology from the 23rd century, because she doesn't understand why this ship, how this ship has managed to survive all these centuries. It was only later on, obviously, Saru reveals to the leader of the Earth Defense Force that they actually traveled through time from the 23rd century, and they're a little bit lost, and they just want to come home. However, their arrival does attract something called the Win, or I think it was called Win, and they're also like bandits, but they're not like the other guys from episode 2. What they're doing is out of desperation. Their colony is in a mess. Their power plant overloaded, I think, and destroyed half the settlement, and they've got no power, and they're looking to find any kind of power source they can, like dilithium crystals and anything else. And it's at that point, they threaten to open fire. Saru sends a message that, look, we'd rather talk about this. Maybe we have something to trade. And the Earth Defense Force obviously want to fire on these guys. So Saru's stuck in a bad situation. He's between a rock and a hard place. And obviously, when the Earth Defense Force starts firing on these invading ships, Discovery puts them. Saru has the crew put Discovery between them and the and the Win. And when they fire on them, it pretty much in one shot basically destroys Discovery's shields. Discovery's shields are just gone. And unfortunately, safe to say, I mean, 32nd century technology versus 23rd century technology, it's going to happen. It's fair to say, it's not hard to, shall we say, imagine that it's going to disarm their shield or disable their shields right away. After that, Saru managed to calm both sides down and bring both leaders to the table and try and open a negotiation for trade. Which obviously he has the leader of the Win explain. Take off his helmet first of all. Turns out he's a human. They thought it was an alien, no, but he was a human from a colony. And as I said, their power plant exploded, devastated half the settlement. And now they're sort of left to scavenge for whatever power sources they can, or materials and anything else. Something of which, of course, Earth has in abundance. Apparently, Earth is hoarding dilithium crystals. So, Earth is a paradise. It's still a utopia. It's just not part of the Federation anymore, which they'll also learn. And when Sarah asks, "Really, Earth's not part of the Federation?" No, why would we be? And why would they be? With warp travel being so scarce and rare as it is, it'll be difficult to sort of maintain that kind of union. Kind of like what's going on with the EU these days, but because that's kind of falling apart, isn't it? I wonder if that was a little reference on that. I don't know, but yeah, and so they managed to resolve the issue and settle some sort of trade negotiation between between the people of Earth and obviously the guys from this colony. And the guy, I can't remember the actor's name. I couldn't find the actor's name. But he's been in a whole mess of stuff. He was in Stargate Atlantis. He was also in Supernatural. He's been in a whole mess of stuff. He's been in a lot of sci-fi shows. I think he was also in a couple of episodes of Battlestar Galactica as well. So he was no stranger to sci-fi, which was good to see. It's good to see a familiar face in a franchise again. And that's pretty much. Saru was made captain. When Michael Burnham comes back on board, Sarah says, "Look, me and you need to go for a talk." She says, "No, it's all right. I want you to be the captain." You see Michael Burnham not really wanting to take the responsibility. She doesn't want the chair. But I think it was also more of a cry out from the fans. A lot of fans, and I in particular, said, Saru should become captain rather than Michael Burnham. And that's what happened. So Saru is now captain of the USS Discovery, and we also see Burnham not regretting being back on Discovery, but she kind of feels out of place there now because she's been here a whole year, and Discovery just got there. For her, it's been it's been some time. And even Georgia made a comment that she's now experienced some real freedom. She hasn't had to follow orders or report to anyone or file reports, make any star logs, anything else. She's essentially just been out doing what she does best. And again, this is where I come back to what I was saying earlier. And that Michael Burnham works best when she's on her own. Rather than being kind of held back by the rest of the crew. And she is held back. And now obviously being a commander. Being the number one of Saru, which I don't think is going to last long. I do think probably not by the end of this season, maybe by the end of season 4, or at least when Section 31 is coming. When they start production on Section 31, Michael Burnham, at least in my belief, and I hope she does, goes over to the Section 31 show, and that's where it obviously, that's where I think she is a much better fit for her. She is a solo act. And Georgia as well. And Georgia kind of recognized that in Burnham in this episode. She pointed it out. So she might, she mentioned she might not want to come back as, as a member of the crew. So, but she does at least. She's agreed to come back on and be his number one at least for a while. And let's see how far that goes. I am looking forward to the next episode coming up on Friday. I can't remember what it's called, but by the way, there is an episode. I think it's going to be It's either going to be episode 5 or episode 7. I can't remember. The episode title is going to be called Unification 3. Unification 3. Now, we've had a Unification Part 1. We've had a Unification Part 2. That was in The Next Generation. The 7th episode, it's definitely the 7th episode. It's going to be called Unification Part 3, which I think is which is an awesome title. To have a third unification. Obviously, it won't be on the same thing, i.e., unifying Romulus and the Vulcan civilization, Romulans and the Vulcans, but rather reunifying the Federation. Perhaps even bringing back Starfleet. But I think the Earth Defense Force of the United Earth will, be turned back into a new Starfleet. And obviously, Discovery will be the flagship for at least for a while until start building better starships again. And we'll see. So we're going to see. That'll be interesting to see. And I do hope if they're going to build a new Federation and a new Starfleet, it's going to be slightly different to what we've had before. There's no point rebuilding the same thing, but because I think it allows the shall we say, the show to go forward, isn't it? Rather than trying to hold on to what was. And it was the whole point of them going to the 32nd century in the first place, to sort of get away from the old stuff, because obviously a lot of fans are losing their minds over this. So if they start from scratch with something new, they can build upon it, and then essentially they can call it their own. And why not? They did a complete, the whole different aesthetic with The Next Generation compared to the motion picture movies and obviously, the original series movies and the original series show. A completely different aesthetic from TNG. And then the same thing then in Voyager, and roughly around about the Dominion era and Voyager time, the ships began changing even then. So let's see, what ships they come up with in the 32nd century, what they're going to look like, what new gadgets and stuff. I'm also looking forward to see what the new comm badges are going to do as well, because we saw what the Earth Defense Force had. They sort of shoot out these computer menus, and they could tap buttons and press things and everything else. And that was pretty cool. So I want to see what these new Discovery comm badges are going to be able to do, if anything. And I hope they're not just comm badges. I hope they do some really cool gadgety things that are going to be some really cool stuff. LGG Pixel says, can't wait for tonight's ep. Yes, unfortunately, I won't get to see it until Friday. It won't come out for me until Friday, unfortunately, so I won't get to see it until then. That's just the way it is. Yeah, unfortunately, unless I would go to a specific site and watch it there, I don't know, but I probably won't. I don't think I'm going to do that. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, but I have to say that overall, the 3 episodes that we've seen so far in this new season are way better than anything season 1 produced. You know, I said at the beginning of this, beginning of this stream, I was never a fan of the first season. I didn't like the first season at all. The second season was an improvement, especially with Anson Mount as the leader, as Captain Pike. You know, but what I didn't like in the first 2 seasons either was the Burnham character, you know, which is now completely changed in this 3rd season. You know, she is a completely different character. One thing I do think we need to die down though is sometimes these overreactions or over emotions when something happens. You know, these are supposed to be professional officers in a military. When you see them getting really over emotional, if one character gets over emotional, I get it. But when they all start getting over emotional, there's something wrong. You know, but hey, you know, that's just my opinion. But anyway, that is all there is to say about the last 3 episodes. I hope you enjoyed watching them as much as I did. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this stream. I wanted to do it yesterday. Unfortunately, I had a family emergency, and it's still, it's still a bit troubling now. But apart from that, guys, I'll be doing I'll be doing another review of episode 4, probably next week, or because I won't have time this weekend. We've got a question of Trek on. But apart from that, yeah, I'm going to say good night, live long and prosper, and I'll see you all next time in the continuum. Good night.